Alright, Chapter 9, Pre-Engineered Storage Tanks. Navy Non-Resident Training Course, November 1996, Steelworker, Volume 2, Navy NAVEDTRA14251. Distribution Statement, approved of Public Lease Distribution Limited. Chapter 9, Pre-Engineered Storage Tanks. And we're running, right? Yeah, we're running. Alright, during World War II, steel tanks made possible many operations during large operations, especially forward over the need of the railroad rapid transit. Appropriate storage tanks were of major importance. Special tanks were used to store fuel, diesel, oil, gasoline, and water to meet the demand of storage facilities. Ships and planes were supplied for a secret tank forms over 3 bases, making possible many of the large invasion of the war. And Pacific chapter will briefly then proceed with the following erected buildable steel tanks, including preparation foundation of the tank. Steel tank. Many types of the tanks are available, but some of the tanks are constructed with the tan mill standard steel sheets. Tanks are galvanized steel sheets or raw iron may be obtained with the tanks. Maybe they both the riveted, well with the bolted riveted to have the capacity up to 10,000 barrels. While the tanks may hold as many as 50,000 barrels, steel workers are normally concerned with the prefabricated bolts. The tanks are composed with a steel sheet slab that easily transport an individual piece with a quite lightly. They can be assembled quickly and viewed with the crews by a relatively untrained man, so long as the men in charge of the understanding the detail of the construction. Once the tanks are assembled, they will last 5 to 6 years. The long or longer shipments include all the bolts, nuts, the fittings, and the gasket material required for some of the drawing and some of the instruction. Also provided 10,000 barrel tanks are used to store the fuel and the diesel oil. The oversee the 1,000 barrel tanks for the gasoline storage. Lower 5,000 barrels help them use the fuel storage where large operations are underway, but they may be used for storage water. Since barrels are equal to 42 gallons, you can see that 10,000 barrel tank is capable of holding 420,000 gallons. The desired bolted steel tank is dismantled and re-erected in another location. You can obtain re-erection kits containing the new gasket material with the extra nose bolt disassembling tank. However, the should make an effort to save all the items. Hardware can be used again when taking down the tank. Avoid damage to any of the members. Recover the number of the re-erection of the tank depend largely upon the care taken of dismantling. Caution: easy care, exercise care when handling plates for the avoid bending, dropping, or otherwise damaging the steel. Bending plates will cause problems with the tank erected when used and result using a leaking tank. Tank foundation. Considerable care should be taken in the construction of the grade finished foundation on which the tank is to be erected. Concrete foundation ordinarily not necessary if the ground is reasonably hard. When the grade is properly prepared, perfectly level, the tank can be joined on an even surface. Therefore, easy to fit and erect for the tank. Also, proper support complete the tank will be less likely to leak. Grading: earth grade should be constructed with approximately 1 foot greater diameter than the diameter of the tank which is occupied. The earth must be well tamped and firm. Smooth surface never fill an area with the tank foundation because of the erosion will in time result in faulty foundation. Foundation construction: tank foundation should be dry, level, the well-drained layer, clean gravel, sand. The grade is ideal for the purpose. Tape or tar paper may be spread under the tank. Corrosion-resistant carpet with a layer of the gravel, sand, and achieve the grade of the firm earth. Follow these steps. Drive a peg in the exact center. 2. Mark the center peg with 6 inches from the drive of the down with the grade into this mark. View the wooden straight edge for the carpenter level. The attached grid set with the grade stakes about 10 feet apart. Note the set in the manner with the protrude 6 inches above the earth and grade. 4. Distribute the sand over the whole grade. Use the shovel to rakes. When the sand just cover the tops of each of the stakes of the center peg, the proper level of it has been reached. Drive the stake of the center peg all the way down with the earth under the sand. When the tank is filled, the sand will compact. If the stakes are not driven down, may cause leak. Mark the position of the center peg temporary pin so that you will be able to position the center of the tank at the bottom of the ladder. To make surface smooth, use the sweep of the carpenter to level the attached pin. The sweep of the center of the peg, drag this over the sand filling of any of the hole for the smoothing out. The sand pad should be at least 4 inches thick. Should have the crown about 1 inch on the 10 feet of the tank radius. However, the crown should not exceed 6 inches. When a foundation is properly prepared, many of the unnecessary problems do not occur during the construction of the tank. Just imagine if the problems might occur with both erections, subsequent for the maintenance of the tank foundation, where there is several uneven throwing steel plates on one side of the tank tightly outlined. Remember that the wall of the tank consists merely of the steel plates. Both together may act as a bearing wall to support the roof. To open that, make sure there is good foundation before starting assembling the tank. Bolted steel tank assembly. Tanks are assembled by section consisting of pieces of various shapes that combine into cylindrical structures. Among most common are bolted steel tanks have the capacity of 100, 250, 500 gallon barrel liquid. Main tank sections serve the sum function regardless of the tank capacity. However, the number of the sections used in each of the assembly vary according to the capacity. The procedure of assembling and erecting these tanks are similar. 100 barrel tank shown figure 9-1. Smallest bolt of the steel tank hold the capacity of 400 gallons. Liquid is made of a performed punch animal section fastened together with a 12-inch diameter bowl. The tank bottom of figure 9-2 consists of the two semi-circular halves bolted together, a lap joint along the center of the tank bottom. And the vertical bolt of the steel tank has 9 foot 2 3/4 inch inside diameter, 8 foot and a half inch, 8 feet and a half inch high, and on the sidewall side stave. The side stave consists of the six curved vertical sting sections of ring and single ring stabs are chimneyed flange at the top of the bottom of each section on the left end. Each of the time offset vertical seams overlap. Bottom chime bolts are patterned to match outer edge of the bolt holes, and the tank bottom vertical seam have one row of bolt holes. Figure 9-1 shows 100 barrel capacity vertical bolted sealed tank. Figure 9-2 shows the tank bottom. Center ladder support with the center of the ladder, center support with the tank deck with the ladder is adjustable with the UV line with the deck. The section bolt hole with the provided required slope with the tank deck. Ladder consists of 2 ladder braces, the 2 ladder rail, 4 ladder step angles, and a flash manhole support with the tank deck. Your tank deck. The tank deck is made up of 6 sections extended radially with the tank center of the ladder support with the top chime and a single ring with a side stab. Each deck section is integrally formed flange along its right edge with a view from a large end tower. End toward the small end of the deck section, and the flange section side of the deck section acts for the supporting rafter of the deck section. Bolt ring retainer angle is attached to the inside face of each of the deck section. The flange retain the radial seam joint bolts that are installed near the right edge of each of the deck section. Special section. The tank bottom has one special section fitted blind opening. All staff the special section figure 9-3, one section for the clean out cover. The other 5 sections are used for pipe connections. Tank deck has 3 special sections, one section with a combination thief, the hatch vent, and one section is blind hatch, and one section is liquid lever indicator. Emergency vent. Each tank is equipped with an 8-inch emergency vent bolted to the top cover of the manhole attached to the top of the center ladder support. Outside ladder. Each tank is equipped with the outside ladder of the axis of the deck. The ladder is bolted with the bottom of the top chimes of the side staffs usually located near the tank sheath, thief, and the vent. 250 barrel tanks have the capacity of 10,500 gallons. Liquid fabrication similar to the 100 barrel tank. The tank bottom consists of the 10 wedge-shaped plates assembled radially around a one-piece center section shown in figure 9-4. Inside diameter of 15 feet 4 5/8 of an inch, and is by 8 feet and a half inch high. The sidewall side stave. The side stave consists of 10 curved vertical section ring with a single ring stave with a chime flange at the top of the bottom. Each section left end of the chime offset so the vertical seam overlap. The bottom chime bolt holes are patterned to match outer edge bolts holes of the tank bottom. The vertical seams have one row of the bottom bolt holes. The tank deck is made up of 10 sections extending radially with the tank center of the ladder support with the top chime and a single ring with a side stab at each deck section is integrally formed flange along its right edge when viewed from large. 9-3 shows the layout of the shafts around the tank bottom. 9-4 shows the layout of the shafts around the tank bottom of the 250 barrel capacity tank. And toward the small end of the deck section on the flange side of the deck section, the axis of the supporting rafter of the deck section bolt retainer angle is attached to the inside face of each of the deck section flange retain radial seam joints so that they are installed near the right edge of each of the deck section. Special section of the tank bottom has one special section fitted with the blind opening, 410 halves. The special section, one section is for clean out cover, the other 3 sections are for the used pipe connection. The tank deck has 3 special sections, 2 sections are used with a combination of thief, hatch vent, and one section is used for the liquid level indicator emergency vent. 8-inch vent is bolted with the top of the cover, the manhole attached to the top of the cover, center ladder support. 500 barrel tank. Figure 9-5 has a capacity of 21,000 gallons of liquid, similar to the 250 barrel tank, except the bottom consists of 14 wedge-shaped plates around with one piece center of the section shown in figure 9-6 with vertical bolted. Figure 9-5 shows a 500 barrel capacity vertical bolted steel tank assembled. The steel tank has a 21-foot, 6.5-inch side diameter with an 8.5-inch high sidewall side stave. The side stave consists of 14 curved vertical section ring, single ring. Staves are chimed and flanged at the top of the bottom. Each section lifted at the end of the chime, offset vertical seam overlap. Bottom chime bolt holes with a pattern to match the outer edge of the bolt hole. The tank bottom vertical seams have one row of bolt holes. The tank deck is made of 14 sections extending radially with the tank center with the ladder support with the top chime single ring with the side stab. The east deck section have an integral form flange around the right edge of the view with the large end towards the small end of the deck section. The flange side of the deck section acts as a supporting wrap of the deck section, bolted retainer angle to attach to the inside of the face of the deck section, flange, retain, radial, seam, joint, bolts. They're installed near the right edge of the deck station. The bolt retainer angles act as a stiffener member to the deck section flange along the span of the deck section. Special section. Tank bottom has one special section fitted for blind opening. 5 of 14 stabs are special section. One section is for clean out cover. The other 4 sections are used for pipe connection. Tank deck has 3 special sections. 2 sections used for thief, the hatch from relief valve. 1 section used for liquid indicator. Emergency vent. Each segment is equipped with a 10-inch emergency vent. Both of the top cover the manhole attached to the top center ladder supports. Erection of a 500-barrel tank. Although similar in design, construction, bolted seal tanks differently manned with a number of parts required for each of the different size tank. But therefore, the erection procedure of the 500-barrel tank, regardless, described, have been applied with the other tanks, regardless of the size. Center and bottom plate. Center and bottom plate, figure 9. So for the circular flat steel plate with the tank bottom plates are attached to the outer circumference bolting circle. For insulation center plate bottom, make sure that it is not warped or broken. Check with the bolt holes for the bolt clearance. Clean the bolt holes with the other form material when the clear plate gasket is applied. Dry the center stake below. Surface of the foundation. Backfill the hole. Place the bolt retaining boards around the other circumference of the plate. Position the plate over the center stake plate for the gasket around the bolt circle with the center and bottom plate. Insert the 2 1.5 by 1.5 inch bolt with the 2 bolt holes slant channel. Figure 9 for the installation gasket bolts for the channel of the center and bottom plate, and figure 9 6 of the layout stab around the tank bottom of a 500 barrel capacity. Insert channel assembly of the center and bottom of the plate gasket. Note, to prevent damage of the gasket, do not use the sharp edge tool pipe to force the gasket over the bolts. Use a well-rounded smooth mouth tool. Lay the center and bottom plate of the bolt retaining boards. Boards will prevent movement of the bolts. Over the bolt and plates are installed. Bottom plate. The tank bottom, it consists of 14 tapered flat steel plates. 13 plates are plain, one special. All plates are interchangeable. When the bottom is completely installed, the plate pattern resembles the wheel of the first bottom plate. Figure 9 with the number 7. It has a bolt channel placed to each radial lap seam, the 1/2 to 1 1/4 inch bolt. A strip gasket placed along each seam. The seams are identified as right, left facing, and large end. Starting at large end plate, figure 9 places the channel under the right and left to the lap seam of the plate. Insert the bolts through all except the end bolt holes of the plate channel. The L channels are put in place. The position of the bolt retaining boards to the facilitating installation of the gasket. Install the gasket along the full length of the right and left lap seam. About 1/2 inch bolt hole overlaps at each end. Note, when there is a break in the gasket material, the end should overlap 2 bolts and cut squarely across the second hole. Putty must be 8-9 installation of the bolt holes. Putty must be applied to each end overlapping strip to ensure the leak-proof joint. Upon completion of the assembly, move this plate with the approximate installation position of the tank foundation over the 13 intermediate plates of the outlet plate with the assembly of the channels and strip the gas. The channels are placed over the right lap seam. Follow the same assembly procedure with the outline above. The addition outlet plate has been blind flange set assembled on it. The above procedure does not apply to the last bottom plate as no further assemblies are made on it. Keep the last bottom plate separated from all the other plates until it is installed with the tank bottom. Cut 6 1-hole gaskets from the strip gasket material of the figure 9/8 number 2. Force 1-hole gasket over the head of each of the flange bolt inside of the bolts of the bolt hole inside the flange half the outside of the flange of the heads of the bolt fitting into the continuous cuts out provided. Lay bolt and retaining boards on the ground. Position flame, assemble the bolt head resting on the board. Slip the gasket over the bolts and forcing it down against the inside of the face flange number 7. Use the round smooth mouth tool. Work from the ground face plate with figure 9 with the number 7. Push the tools through the bolt holes of the flange opening plate for the blocking under the bolt fly and assembly to hold it in position. Slip a gasket over the bolts and force it down against the inside face of the plate. Slip the outside flange half over the bolts and the machine face of the flange facing the gasket. Apply with the nuts of the bolts to tighten the bolts. Remove the plate from the blocking. Lay it on the tank foundation. With the first bottom plate is an approximate installation location tank foundation. Lay the remaining plates around the tank foundation. Proceed with the installation as follows. First, place the small end of the plate over the center plate position. Bolts figure 9/8 and number 3 apply with a finger tightened catch nut to the bolts inside of the lap. The seam the catch nuts ordinarily nut. Apply to the bolts hole with the assembled plates in position. First intermediate plate, well-shaped and with the gasket may be used wherever 3 plates are joined together. Before installation of the plate, you should place a wedge gasket figure 9/8 4 over the gasket. Figure 9, 7 number 3 at right edge of the first plate, 7 base of the small end of the plates. Install the plate, all remaining plates of the left of the first plate, counterclockwise direction around the tank foundation. Place the small end of the plate over the bolts. Figure 9, 8 number 3 with the right lap seam over the plate laid over the bolts. Figure 9, 8 number 1 left lap seam of the plate. Figure 9, 8 number 7. Apply finger tighten catch nuts to the bolts to follow the same procedure outlined above. Apply catch nuts to the bolts in the lap seam with intervals of approximately 18 inches. Do not tighten the catch nuts beyond the finger tightness. Each plate must be removed with adjustment with the tank bottom to obtain the correct spacing for the installation of the last plate. Remaining intermediate plates install the following the same procedure as above. Last plate, install the last plate by spacing the last seam over the lap seam of the next to the last plate. The number figure 991. First plate, figure 992 plate for the small end over the bolts. Figure 98 number 3 it is the vital point in the tank bottom. Make sure that it is secure against the leakage. Installation of wedge gasket. Apply heavy coating of sealing compound with a bolt face of the 2 gasket. Figure 99 number 3 install over the bolts. Figure 994 use the generous amount of sealing compound to overseal the lap. Seal opening under the small end. Tighten tank bottom work from the small end of the plates. Remove all of the catch nut of the inside of the rubber gaskets. Seal recessed washers and nut on each of the bolts. This applies to all of the bolts on the tank bottom with the exemption of those in the outer circumference chime in the top of the tank bottom. Figure 99 shows the method of installing the wedge gasket for the installation on the last bottom plate. Figure 910 shows applying sealant compound to the bottom chimes of the stabs. Secure the side stab with tighten all the bolts in the tank bottom starting at the small end of the plate. Sealing the sealing. Sweep the bottom clean after the tightening of the bolts with the drop bottom dry and apply with the sealing compound to all the bottom seams. Figure 910. Your side stab the single ring tank place all of the turn support ladder components, manhole dome, bottom just before the install of the last stab. This is to prevent them from having to be lifted over the top of the stabs later. The top of the bottom flange edges of the stabs are called chimes, and the side edges are called vertical seams. Stabs are single row of the bolt holes, each seam layout of the stabs. There are 5 special 9-plane stabs within the ring. Place the stabs of the opening and pipeline connections in the proper position, and lay out the remaining stabs around the perimeter in the bottom of the bottom. Place the stabs within the chime set down with a conveniency, preparing them for the assembly. The stabs are laid out each straddles a radial seam to the bottom. Stabs have an offset at the top and the bottom, and the tops are determined by looking at the stab in a vertical position with the outside in proper position, offset lower and upper left corner. Dressing stabs. The end of the chime, the offset of the plane section, top and bottom, must be slightly bent to ease the insulation. The end of the chimes are offset at the offset 9/11. They must be bent inward toward each other. The end of the plane chimes are bent outward away from each other. The bends are made with a few sharp blows from a hammer. Figure 911 shows the tapes of shafts bent. Along the right seam of each stab, it will be put in place for the chimes out of place for the trip gasket with the outside of the row of the bolt hole of the gasket material that comes in. Roll the cut in the proper length of each stab. Cut the gasket material so that it covers and projects that one bolt hole past the top of the bottom chimes. Inserting 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolt through the shaft joint channel stab of the gasket in that order. Omit one bolt about 10 inches from the bottom of the shaft. The other bolts about 2-foot interval. The drift pins for the can be inserted align the shaft with the one another before bolting them together. Preparing the outer edge of the tank bottom as no channels are used with the bolts. Insert the groove of the chime outer edge at the bottom of the bottom be raised to provide clearance to insert the tighten the bolts following the installation of the stabs. Raise the chime and the blockage of the short length 3x3, 4x4 inches timbers. Equally space the intervals around the perimeter of the bottom set with the blocking at about 16 inches for the outer edge. Install the trip gasket to cover all of the bottom hole. When one roll of gasket material is used up, a new one is started. Overlap should extend over the 2 bolt holes that apply as putty each end of the overlap. Insert the wedge gasket underneath the gasket at the laps formed with the bottom plates. Insert 1/2 inch by 1 inch bolts through all the bolt holes in the bottom and 8 around the gasket in that order, except for the lap seams at the bottom. Insert 1/2 inch, 1 1/2 inch bolts in each lap seam. Make the rubber gaskets and steel recess washers on all chime bolts. First stab. The first stab, figure 8, 9, 12 of the 1, install the bottom of the must be with one fitted with a pipe coupling with the same side of the tank supply pipe. Place the stave over the proper bolt so that the stave of the travel of the radial seam over the bottom. As a result, each subsequent stab will travel the radial seam. Install for equal space. Catch nuts to hold the stave in position. Run nuts down and by hand and fasten the stab loosely. The nuts are now tightened until the last stab at the end of the ring is in place. Two special gaskets are needed. The wedge gasket fills the space by lap offset vertical seam, and the radial gasket is installed underneath the gasket at the bottom of the top chimes of the shaft and radii. Figure 912 shows installing the first staff. Radii gasket must be placed between the chimes and the rubber gasket material at the seam, the top of the bottom of all side sheets to ensure the leak-proof connection. The second staff is installed with the stabs in the counterclockwise direction around the bottom and insist the installation of the staff push to with 3 bolt push, one gasket in the chime over the bottom of the right of the first staff and install with the rubber gasket steel recess washers on all vertical seam bolts. Set the stab at the position of the left seam, outside right seam, the first stab at the upper. Use drift pins to open bolt hole for the stab to align the hole for the stab. Install the nuts only every 6th and 10th bent bolt in the row. Also remain stabs of the install. Check carefully with the position and the tightness of all radii strips and wedge gaskets. Remaining intermediate stabs. Face outside second stab of the install, 11th stab with the right hand, second stab or in the counterclockwise direction around the bottom, and assemble the hook ladder. Hook it in over the inside of the stab. As the stabs are installed, stand on the ladder and fit all the bolt heads squarely into the channel. All the bolt heads must be fitted squarely. 9th and 13th show the location scaffold around the top chime of the staff. Into the shaft joint channels to ensure proper tightness. The last staff to assist the installation of the staff, the staff, to push all of the bolts, figure 912, the number 2, end of the chime on the bottom flush with the gaskets to provide clearance for the sliding in the last staff. Set the shaft at the position of the left seam, outside of the right seam of the next to left staff of the right seam, inside of the left seam of the first staff. Loosen the bottom chime. Nut stab with number 2 and 3. Lift this first staff, number 3, slightly with the bottom chime of the stab with number 1 slips into the place. Use drift pins to line the holes of the bolts and stab with number 1, 2, and 3. Install the nuts of the bolts and chime bolts. Install 1 and 1/2 inch bolts. Figure 9, 13, 2 with the 1/3, 10th of the 12th on 20th bolt. Hold the vertical seam counting down from the top chime with every stab. There are scaffold mounting bolts. Install the remaining bolts in all the seams. Install the gasket washers with the cup side down over the gaskets. Figure 914 show the remove the timber blocking. All of the seam bolts apply with the nuts with the round face down. All of the bonds do not tighten. Tighten all the chime bolts uniformly. Remove the blocking. Place under the chime over the bottom. Use the heavier, longer timber as a lever and short timber as a fulcrum to lift the chime. Lighten all the seam bolts. Be careful not to crush the gasket supply sealing compound the inside perimeter over the bottom of the chime of the shafts. Dressing the top of the chime, use the scaffold, install the strip gaskets, cover all of the bolt holes. Figure 915, when one roll of gasket material is used up, you have the new one started to overload to extend over the 2 bolt holes, applying seal compound to each end of the lap, insert for the wedge gasket underneath the gasket. Each lap formed adjoining stabs, insert for the 1/2 inch, 1 inch bolt through the chime and gasket, or the gasket will hold the bolts in place. Ladder assembly. Ladder consists of the bolts of steel angle section. The top ladder is fitted with the manhole dome, and the bottom of the ladder is fitted with the ladder anchors, flange, flat steel plates. At the small end of the deck is plate with the bolts over the bottom of the flange of the manhole dome. Place two ladder rails, number 9, 16, 1, and 2, with the similar bolting legs facing each other on the top. Several pieces of block sufficient and enough to support both rails, space wide enough to impart the insert of the ladder. Figure 915 shows the dress top sham of the staves. 916 shows the deck support ladder. To determine the end of the rolls, wheel beef bottom, install the steps bottom toward the top of the ladder file. 5 step with the makeup of the assemble section. Insert 1/2 inch by 1 inch bolt through the end of the step rails. Install the nut and each bolt protruding through the rails. Tighten the bolts after all of the steps are installed. Face the 30 bolt hole flange manhole dome. Slide it over the top of the rails. Use the drift pin and figure 9/17 show the first deck plate installed. Align the 3 bolt holes at the top of the rails with a similar hole at the side of the dome with an insert of the 1/2 inch by 1 M-inch bolts and through the rails dome and in that the order to apply with the gasket washer through the bowl. Figure 916, number 6. Make sure the cup side of the washer is facing down over the gasket. Apply with the nuts to the bolt. Make sure the round face of the nut is bearing against the washer. Tighten the bolts. Install the 28 bolt hole gasket. Figure 917 inside of the face. A bottom flange of the dome. Insert 1/2 by 1 1/4 inch bolt through the flange and the gasket. The gasket will hold the bolts in place. Install the ladder anchors. Figure 916, number 8, at the bottom of the rail. Place the long leg of the anchor over the 3-bolt hole with the vertical leg of the rail. The short leg of the anchor's forward to outward. Adjust the outside bolting face the short leg so it measures 9 feet 5 1/16 of an inch from the top of the flange of the dome. Insert the 2 bolts through each of the anchor and rail. Apply the nuts to the bolt and tighten securely. Figure 918 shows the center support ladder installed. Figure 919 shows the deck plates ready to be installed. Lines up the 2 diametrically opposite lap seam. Figure 918. In the tank bottom, remove the nut for each of the bolt in lap seam with the first bolt with the right and left with each of the lap seam raised with the ladder assembly. See that the anchor bolts over the bolts. Apply the nuts and tighten top deck assembly. The assembled deck consists of the 14 tapered flat steel plate. Figure 919 integral form flange along with the right lap seam with the seams identified with the rig left and facing large. All ends of the plates are interchangeable. Of 14 plates, there are 3 special 2 plates fitted with a tank thief vent. 1 plate is fitted with a liquid level indicator. Each deck plate has a deck plate channel and a rafter bolt retainer angle with an assembled line. With the small end of the plates is bolted at the bottom flange of the dome and the larger end of the bolted on the top chime the shafts. Layout and assembly of the plates. Layout of the plates around on the outside of the perimeter of the tank foundation plate with the blocking of the ground space with the fit inside of the confines of the plate. Layout of the inside of the flange short leg facing outward. Insert 4 equal space bolts through the angle of the flange that apply with the nuts of the bolts. Tighten the bolts. Turn the plate over the flange down. Install the gasket along the full length of the right lap seam and allow 2 bolts will overlap each other. Lay out the assembled plates. After the plates are assembled, raise them up and stand them against the scaffold as shown in Figure 919. Each plate is straddled with a vertical seam over the side of the have the approximate installation position counterclockwise. Adjusting the center support ladder. Check adjustment ladder to correct the height before the installation of the deck plate for the distance from the top of the tank bottom of the outer face of the flop flange of the dome and the 9 foot 6 and 9/64 of an inch raised lower ladder is required. Place the jack under one over the ladder. Step the top of the ladder so that the final position. One set holes at the bottom of the rail lines over the hole of the brace. Like the jack insert of the bolts through the proper bolt hole of the brace match with the top of the hole of the rail with the ply with the nuts of the bolt. Tighten the bolts with unlock to remove the jack. When all the deck hole plates have been installed with the tank, check for the height of the outer face of the top of the flange manhole dome above the top of the tank bottom. If not required height, adjust the ladder until it is correct dimension. Insert the bolts in the line bolt hole, tighten the nuts. Installing the first deck plate. The first plate is installed should be a plate with a vent. Remaining plate fitted with the vent must be installed directly across the tank. First plate with the vent and with its 2 rope deck hooks or small end of the plate while it stands against the scaffold. Figure 913 guide large ends of the plate. Pull the plate into place by means of a haul line. Lower the large end of the plate over the proper bolt to the top chime over the safe so that will straddle with the vertical seam. The small end of the plate will drop over the proper bolts. Relieve the hooks. Apply 4 equally spaced catch nuts to bolt through the large end over the plate. Open one catch nut will be sufficient to hold the small end in place. Do not tighten the bolts. Install the second deck plate. Install the gasket over the bolt on the left lap seam plate. Figure 917, 3 and 4. Face the small end of the plate number 4. Install the plate. All the remaining plates for the left of the first plate or in counterclockwise direction around the tank and raise the plate. Place the right lap seam over the plate over the bolts of the left lap seam of the first plate number 4. And then large end over the proper bolts of the top chime of the shafts. Install the nuts and 6 equally spaced bolts in the large seams of the plates. Install the nuts on all bottom bolts in the chime. Finger tighten all the nuts in the deck and may have to be adjusted in the plates or have it installed, but do not tighten any of the bolts until the deck is completed installed. Raise lower and center support ladders is required in the plates in place. Installation intermediate deck plates. There are 12 intermediate plates. The special plates remaining are installed to suit field conditions. Last deck plate. Raise the last deck plate before the next to last plate is installed. Raise the right last seam of the first deck plate. Figure 921. This is necessary to permit installation of the last plate. Figure 920 shows installing the last deck plate. Figure 921 shows the outside ladder installed. Left lap seam of the last lap plate slips under the right lap seam of the first plate with the right lap seam of the last plate with the place over the bolts. Left lap seam of the next last plate installed. Next, make necessary adjustments to the deck if the last plate failed to fit properly. Remove the nuts, temporarily install on all the bolts of the plate lap seam, and then install the rubber gasket, steel recess washer, nut all the bolts except on the bolts. And the top chime of all the 7 and 12 of the missing nuts on the chime bolts. Make sure the brown headed on the nuts against the plate with the washer, then the cupped inside with the washer face down, cover the rubber gasket, tighten the bolts, remove the scaffold, install the gasket, washer, remove the nuts of all the bolts, vertical seams, return the bracket to the post of the tank erection tools cassette. Manhole cover if the tank is used for water storage, and mate with the emergency vent valve. Figure 921. Install the manhole cover, the blind flange hatch set after the installation manhole air intake. Install 30 bolt hole gaskets on the top flange dome. Insert 1/2 and by 1.5 inch bolt through the flange gasket. In that order, the gasket will hold the bolts in place. Install the 30 bolt hole manhole cover. Figure 921. 1 over the bolts. Install the gasket. Washer the nut on all bolts. Install the washer and the nuts as above. Tighten the bolts. Emergency vent valve. The emergency vent consists of the one-piece flange around with a cast steel body fitted with lugs. For the hinge vent, the vent is one piece with rounded cast steel with the body fitted with the lifting handle of the flange lugs, and the vent comes attached with the flange body hinges and seals the deck opening. Place a manhole cover with the gasket over the bolt hole at the opening of the cover to 921-1. Insert the 1/2 inch bolts over the 2 bolt hole channels. Work through with the 10-inch bolt hole. Then insert the holes through with the cover and the gasket. Install the vent valve. Figure 921. 2. Cover over the bolts. Apply with the nuts to the bolts. Tighten the bolts. Manhole air intake. The manhole air intake consists of one-piece round flange sheet steel with a dust and restrictor ring and one-piece round fabricated steel bar inside the screen. The ring's copper insect screen. The insect screen is attached to the screen ring, and the 2 outside rings form with the steel bar flange bolts now inserted through the manhole cover. Dust restrictor ring, steel pipe sleeve spacers, attached air intake to the manhole dome. Wrap the insect screen around with the outside of the inside of the screen ring. Join ends of the screen with the copper wire weaved. Install the outside screen ring at the top of the bottom of the insect screen to hold it on place. Make sure the screen is knocked out with a position. Tighten the bolts. Install the screen ring with the top flange of the dome and insert the flange bolt through with the cover of the dust restrictor ring. Steel plate sleeve space for the top flange of the dome. Figure 920, number 3 in order. And apply with the nuts on the bolts. And tightening, place magnetic manhole cover gasket over the bolt hole at the opening cover to insert 1 and 1/2 inch bolts through the 2 bolt hole channels. Work through with the 10-inch hole with the insert of the bolts through with the cover and the gasket. Install the blind hatch flange over the bolts. Apply the nuts to the bolts. Tighten the bolts. The outside ladder consists of 1 bolted steel with an angle section. The top ladder is attached to the deck with the 2 fabricated steel handrails, 2 bolted steel angle braces. Support the ladder at the bottom of the chime of the staff. Place the left side of the ladder section on the right side of the ladder section. Similar bolting legs facing each other on the tops of the pieces, blocking sufficient length to support the bolt section. Space wide enough for the part to install the ladder in step 921, number 6. Select the bottom end of the ladder. 7 steps to make up the assemble the section. Insert 1.5 inch by 1 inch bolts at the ends of the step of the section in that order. Install the nut on each bolt protruding through the section. Tighten the bolts after all the steps are installed. Then install the braces at the bottom of the section, the leg of which 3 bolts hold near each end of the braces. Attach outside face of the vertical leg of the section. Insert a bolt through the end of the bolt hole section and the brace. Install the nuts on the bolts. Finger tighten the bolts. Install the handrails at the top of the section. Insert the bolts through the horizontal leg of the section of the rails in that order. Install the nuts of the bolts. Tighten the bolts. Use temporary ladder while you're installing the outside ladder. Place an assembled ladder where it's convenient with the teeth of the vent outer perimeter of the deck. Lift the ladder and set end of the bolts over the race of the figure 921 over the nate over the bolts of the bottom chime. The staff of the mark the bolts from the top of the temporary ladder. Mark the bolts in the outer perimeter of the deck covered by the rails set the outside. Alright, negative 922, 1-piece flange elbow install to the inside of the tank. 923, water draw-off valve install to the outside of the tank. Okay, ladder inside of the remove the nuts from the bolts, set over the outside ladder, back of the bolts, install the nuts, bolts, lighten the bolts, tighten all the bolts of the attaching brace at the bottom of the ladder, disassemble the temporary ladder. Water draw-off the valve assembly consists of the commercial 2-inch bronze valve made up with a cast iron flange with a gasket installed to the outside of the tank. The 1-piece flange cast steel elbow the gasket installed to the inside of the tank. The valve and elbow together, then the side of the tank. The flange elbow installed to the elbow, figure 921-1 inside of the tank with a shaft cut for 1-hole gaskets, 4 of the gaskets over the bolts, and insert the bolts and through with the flange of the elbow. Place the blocking under the threads of the bolts. Force a gasket over the bolts. Turn in the outlet. elbow toward the tank bottom, insert the belt bolts through the shaft, install the nuts temporarily on the two bolts while you are assembling the valve. Remove the nuts before installation of the valve. Your draw-off valve. Hold the elbow, figure 922 with one position inside of the tank, install the gasket, figure 923, one over the bolts, install the outside flange over the bolts, install the nuts on the bolts, and tighten the bolts installed, made valve inside of the flange with thread-type valve outlet must be facing the ground. Tank outlet is some with an elbow fabricated made with a flange inside the cast iron gasket, installed inside of the tank, and an adapter fabricated seal pipe made up with the flange outside cast iron gasket. Installed outside of the tank of the outlet end of the adapter is sealed with a cap of the malleable iron held in place and the bolt is split with a coupling malleable iron. The adapter and elbow are held together through the side of the tank. Clean out cover frame. Special bolt channels are installed inside of the tank at the top and side of the clean out. The opening of the gaskets installed over the bottles of the outside of the tank. Frame is fabricated with a rectangular shaped flange steel sheet that is flanged all the way over the round. Both front and back of the back flanges are radial fit outside of the tank. The holes on the bottom of the flange are punched into the fit of the tank chine. 924 show the bolts installed in a clean out opening. Alright, the clean out cover the flat rectangular sheet with the sheet with the two form round seal handles are well with the outside of the face for the sheet. Horizontal channel plate for the bolt, the channel bolt for the clean out opening inside of the shaft with the figure 924. Insert 1.5 inch bolt through all the bolt holes. Be sure the bolt holes are square when the channel inside of the basket along the full length of the top seam. Outside of the shafts allow one over the bolt, no overload. Each of the vertical channel each side of the seam of the clean out with the opening consists of one vertical row bolt. Holes placed the bolt channel inside of the tank on each row of the bolt hole. Insert the bolt through all of the bolt holes. Be sure the bolt holes are square and the channel. Install the gasket along the full length of each of the row bolts. Passes the gasket over the top of the sheet of the gasket. Allow one of the bolt hole overlap to each line of the pie. Heavy coating of sealing putty with the overlap of the top vertical seam gaskets. Install the radiator gasket under the vertical seam gaskets at the bottom of the chine of the shaft. Clean out frame. To assist in the installation of the clean out frame, figure 925. Number 2, push all the chine bolts flush with the ends of the gasket on the chine at the bottom of the providing clearance for the sliding. The frame in place, install the frame and the radius flange over the bolts will flange against the outside of the stave of the frame straddles the lap seam to make sure the wedge gasket is under the gasket of the seam. The work the bolts through the bottom of the flange of the bolt frame and install the nuts temporarily with enough of the bolts to hold the frame in place. Install the gasket washers with the cup side down over the gasket on all seam bolts. Omit with the gasket and the washer for the chine bolts. Apply with the nuts with the round face down on all bolts and tighten them uniformly around the frame to maintain leak proof. Clean cut cover work for the back. Insert the 1.5 inch by 1 inch bolt through the front of the flange frame and install the basket along the full length of each of the roll bolts, the top and the bottom flange. Allow one bolt overlap each other. Install the one gasket along the full length of each of the row of the bolts and side flange. Prep the gasket over the top of the bottom flange gasket. Allow one bolt hole overlap to each end. Apply heavy coating of sealing compound at the overlap top of the side flange and gasket. Stand covered figure 925, 6 position, which plates 7 and 8 are set with a direct reading. Slip the cover over the bolts. Install the gasket washer with the cup inside down over the gasket on all the bolts. Apply with the nuts with the round face down on all the bolts. Tighten the bolts uniformly around the cover to maintain a leak-proof joint. Cleaning the side of the tank erection crew must clear out all of the debris, paper, and any other material of an inflammable nature, leaving a clean, neat installation for a pipeline crew or others. All of the tools and other erection equipment must be picked up and returned to the tank erection tool set. Chapter 10, Pontoons.